Thanks, Ryan and Bill, for joining me today. We have Bill Dufour from NICE, and of course, as always, Ryan Heath. And we're getting together today to talk about AI and government services. Ryan, do you want to step in and say hello? Take it from there.
Yeah, well, welcome, Bill. I appreciate you joining the podcast.
Thank you.
It's going to be great to kind of really understand your background. It's pretty unique from the government standpoint, from commercial sectors. So how do you kind of see the AI impacting government services? And
I think it's important to kind of take a look at what we really mean when we talk about AI. For years, we've been hearing about how it's going to start changing things, and it's finally here, right? It's finally gotten to the point where AIs can have conversations with people, and AI can start, carrying on a reasonable conversation with folks. But what's really important to me underneath that conversation is what's the AI going to say, and why is it going to say what it's going to say? And what we are learning is that it's not just the fact that AI can converse, right? A lot of times the way I look at AI is kind of like a 3-year-old, right? It can babble imaginary friends, right? So the thing you need to do with this AI is, at least certainly the conversational aspect of it, is you really need to put some stringent guardrails around it. And as we start looking at the guardrails, and the way we at NICE are looking at this is it's really a derivative of good knowledge management and knowledge management hygiene and governance that's going to drive effective AI in most of our customers' environments, right? What we really need it to do is we need it to pay attention to what we have trained it, the same way we train call center agents today, or the same way we write FAQs today. We expect that the responses are going to be what the institution needs in the institution's language. For years, knowledge management has been kind of a sideline activity. It has been something typically IT people have done. I think we're going to have to bring knowledge management and the governance around knowledge management into the forefront of the rest of the business now, because it's that knowledge management that AI is going to leverage in its responses and in the way we ourselves ask AI our own internal questions. Again, I'm less concerned about this big AI boogeyman that a lot of people are worried about. I really look at it, as I said earlier, as that 3-year-old, and we got to get a good teacher in the room with the 3-year-old. We got to teach them some good things. And I think that is the role we are going to have in sort of monitoring and policing AI for ourselves.
I would imagine that, when we talk about being the adult in the room, what does that interaction look like between the adult and the child, between the human and the AI? And we'll get into more details about, government governance and some of the other things later. But from a broad perspective, what does that look like?
Yeah. So look, the way the knowledge management work, and the rules you would teach this 3-year-old would be, hey, only answer in the context of the information we've given you. Don't make anything up, right? That is probably the most important lesson that we have to teach that 3-year-old. Is if it isn't in this body of knowledge, you say you don't know. That's the thing that has bitten a lot of other organizations when they've tried to implement this recently without kind of these guardrails. They get some very unfortunate outcomes that we can talk about later. But it's teaching that AI, look, I'm the adult. I'm going to teach you the things you can say. And if you don't know what to say, the answer is you don't know.
is it pretty easy to trick AI into giving you a response maybe that you're looking for? That information is not correct. From someone that really knows how to use AI correctly, especially on the prompting side, can you get a response that you really shouldn't be able to get?
100%. And it's happened very publicly recently, right? And it's going to continue to happen until commercial entities understand how to implement AI without the proper guardrails. We had a case where a brand new Chevy Tahoe was sold for $1. And a chat bot was told to disparage its own company that it was being hosted on, right? So it was very easy to trick the 3-year-old into saying something bad and something that it shouldn't have done if you knew how to engineer the chat prompt, right? You got to teach the AI, like I said earlier, the only responses you're going to be able to have are from this body of knowledge.
So when you dump everything into AI, right, how do you kind of segment that off? So you're getting the correct response. You're not getting something maybe that's, you're dumping a big library of information in there that's going to parse through, but you kind of want the most current, not the old stuff. What's the system? How do you go about doing that to
Yeah, look, and
actually get
this
the
is
best?
this is the essence of governance, right? When I look at governance, it's not just the organizational structure around who approves what goes into the knowledge management environment. It is the entire life cycle and ecosystem of governance of your knowledge, right? And it has been really easy up till now to allow old content to live in your environment because the adults in the room understood it was old content and wouldn't use it. But the problem is when you have a 3-year old using that content, they don't know the difference. Right? You may be able to train it to say things like, "Hey, if this was last updated more than 3 years ago, don't use the content." Right? Absolutely, something that could be done in the environment, right? Or a way to segment it off. But those are some pretty hard guardrails, right? I think the better thing to do would be to be very deliberate about the information you have up there and make sure that you are always going through the relevant content and pruning out the stuff that's no longer relevant and making sure it's always updated. I see a world where you will ask your own AI, hey, spit out the least used information content that you've had in the system, and let's review it to see whether it belongs in the system. Or better yet, maybe let's look at some of the oldest content that's in the system and let's put it through review to make sure it's still relevant, right? And look, if it is less relevant, let's come up with some ways to tell the 3-year-old, hey, you probably don't want to use this unless it's a last resort. But this is also why I think that governance component is so vitally important, right? The AI is not just going to run everything. That's a panacea. That's not the way this is going to work. It's only going to run what it's told to run. And it's now incumbent upon the adults in the room to teach the 3-year-old the right things. Let's build some sound policies, internal policies around how that knowledge should be governed.
So, there's been a lot of concern. You talked about the AI boogeyman, and, there have been some concerns about AI, taking jobs. But there's also the reality that this governance and this oversight and this sort of human AI interaction is going to require more human labor, right? So what does that look like in terms of staffing and coordinating this knowledge management process from the human side?
Look, I think at the end of the day, let's look at what government's going to do 5 years from now. Your citizens are going to be able to get their response quickly at any time of day. The AI will respond correctly to 90% of what's coming in. The humans are going to be there to handle all of the weird edge cases that take time, and they'll be able to do it without the pressures of 37,000 other calls coming in at that moment, right? They'll be able to honestly service our citizens as humans and take the time to work with them. I envision a day where a lot of that load, a lot of the extra human cycles are going to go back into the knowledge management side. Look, if you think about it, today the call center agents, the folks that are on the phone, the management of that environment, that's exactly the knowledge, the human knowledge we need to feed into the knowledge-based systems, right? So I don't see it as a massive reduction in call center agents or things along those lines. I see it as much more a shift in responsibilities. I think a lot of folks are going to wind up going over to the knowledge management side, or maybe playing dual roles, maybe working half the day or half the week as an agent, the other half going through knowledge management and making sure things are tuned up. I absolutely see that as a likely outcome of where we're going.
So a lot of that, like when we dump information in, and you're trying to kind of parse that out. Is it bad knowledge in? Is bad knowledge out? So,
garbage in, garbage out, man.
Yeah.
It was true in the 1950s. It's true today. It's not going to change.
So having trained agents that are really good at their skill set at being part of that knowledge management then is key, because you want that expertise to be shown.
Exactly. In fact, I mean, think about this, right? I mean, One of the other things we see coming out of this AI thing, not just the knowledge management side, but imagine an AI environment that is watching the agent interactions, right? We've got great auto summaries going on, we got transcription going on. Imagine AI being able to dig through all of that, and you as a operations manager or director, just simply asking AI, hey, tell you what, why don't you tell me what the 5 longest longest handle time topics have been over the last month, and give me a summary of what those topics were, and find the best 5 agents in handling that and tell me what they did. That kind of elaborate question is something we're going to be able to ask AI. What's interesting about being able to ask that question is it requires an awful lot of the underlying components to not just be merely building blocks that are stitched together, but to be heavily integrated. And I think this is where we're starting to see some of these old paradigms may not hold true in the AI future. So I think this is one of the other things we're starting to see here is some of the integrated solutions like NICE has offer a tremendous amount of upside as well on the ability to recursively go through that knowledge management paradigm, right? Because again, if you think about this, if we've got complete awareness of everything that's going on in the environment, we're going to be able to ask those really detailed questions. You then come back and you say, how do we build the knowledge management around this problem? And you sit down with humans to structure the solution, and you then put that back into the knowledge management system.
I think that's a good place for us to wrap up the conversation there. I think we've covered a lot of really extremely useful information. Bill, so thank you, so much for your time and
thank you
contribution. And Ryan, as always, do you have anything to add?
It's been an enjoyment going through this process. So looking forward to kind of getting through with customers and getting through the whole process with them. So looking forward to it.
Well, thanks, guys, for your time today. And as always, everyone, like and share and subscribe. And we'll see you on YouTube and LinkedIn and email and the website and everywhere else. So thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.